So, Doctor, could you tell us what is peritraumatic, sorry, let me start over. Can you tell us what peritraumatic dissociation is and whether it factored into your evaluation in this case?
Yes, that's the kind of thing that you experience when you're going through a very frightening or traumatic set of situation or circumstances or whatever. And it's the sort of thing that you can experience in the sense that you kind of feel that things are unreal or that it's not you. It's like you're watching yourself go through actions and so on. And it's the sort of thing that if you talk about it, it sounds like it could be psychotic, but it's actually a recognized, more likely to be a recognized aspect of going through a traumatic situation or set of circumstances that many people going through something like that would experience.
And when you say going through something like that, are you talking about when the defendant was strangling her children?
That would be one example because that was very traumatic for her.
And did the defendant show signs of peritraumatic disassociation in the records or in your conversation with her?
She did. She talked about feeling like it wasn't her, like she was watching herself, like she was going through what she called no thinking, no decision making, only responding to the voice and taking action.
And when she said that there was no decision making involved, did you see anything about in the records or in her detailing of what happened that was inconsistent with that claim, that there was no decision making?
Yeah, this is difficult but important to say. That there are just many ongoing decisions that have to be made to accomplish a killing like this in 18 to 20 minutes. For example, why the basement? Who among the children goes first? What do you say to the kids to keep them from panicking? There are other examples, but
yeah, hold on.
And so what types of decisions, without getting to what she might have said or thought, what are some types of decisions that had to be made to effectuate the strangulation of the children?
Well, I tried to give some examples a minute ago, and I don't want to go too...
All right, hold on. Just answer the question, all right? Don't comment on the rulings of the court. Just answer the question, please. Okay?
If I could rephrase.
Yeah.
Doctor, the choice of where to strangle the children, does that have to be a choice of where that happens?
Yes.
The decision of how to strangle them, is that a decision that needs to be made?
Yes.
What to use to strangle the children, is that a decision that has to be made?
I'm sorry, I have to object.
No, overruled. I'll allow that.
What to use to strangle the children, is that a decision that has to be made?
Yes, it is.
The order in which to strangle the children, is that a decision that has to be made?
That's another example of the decision, yes. Decisions.
And the way in which to kill herself, were those decisions that had to be made?
Yes, they were.
Now, you said that this peritraumatic disassociation seems like it would be a sign of psychosis, but isn't. Why isn't it?
It's actually something that is much more commonly experienced in that kind of set of circumstances than psychotic symptoms.
And yesterday when you went through the two options that you considered, that this was psychosis with command hallucinations or suicide with altruistic filicide, is your testimony that it's either or it's one or the other?
It's my testimony that those were the two possibilities that seemed to have some evidence, but at the end of talking to her, testing, reviewing all the information, doing the collateral interviews, everything I did as a part of this evaluation, the evidence much more strongly in my opinion, supported the second explanation, which was the serious suicide attempt accompanied by killing the children out of love.
Now, you interviewed the defendant on 2 days, the first day and the third day, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And were there any differences in her demeanor or her way of answering questions between the first day and the third day?
Yes, I interviewed her and worked with her on testing for 3 days. And during the first and the second day, she was quite attuned to the question. Her recollection was good, even considering that we were more than 3 years away from some of the events in question. She had, I thought, a very good memory for dates and medications and dosages and times and other relevant details. And she continued to be attentive and responsive, good attention, concentration, that sort of thing on the second day. On the third day, when we were talking about mental state at the time of the offense and the circumstances of what was going on with the alleged offense, she appeared to me much more cautious and guarded.
And can you give us some examples of that?
She more frequently said, "I don't remember, I don't recall," that sort of thing during the third day than the second or the first. For one example, I asked her about wearing a smartwatch, which she had, carried a phone, carried a smartwatch as well. And one of the things I asked her is what wrist she wore it on. This was on the third day, and she said, "I don't remember."
And did you also ask her about her statement at Brigham and Women's when she woke up and said she was horrified?
I did. Now, that statement was not a statement so much as it was a written. She woke up in having regained consciousness that evening. She was intubated, so she couldn't speak. But they asked her questions, and she wrote down the answer, and they asked her, "How are you feeling, or what's your mood?" And what she said was, what she wrote was horrified.
And when you asked her about that on that third day of interviewing, what was her response?
She said, I don't remember writing that, and I don't remember why I would have been horrified.
And did you also ask her about the statement she made at Brigham and Women's, either verbally or on the writing it down, about how she said that one of the reasons she killed the children was because she thought they would suffer?
Where are you? Are you in my report there?
Referring to the records at Brigham and Women's where she
Well,
told...
I don't object, Your Honor. She's going to lead him with the records.
No, she can refer to where she's looking to direct his attention, if you review those.
You reviewed the Brigham and Women's records, correct?
I did, yes.
And the portion where it says that she told a treatment provider that she had to kill the kids to kill herself because the kids would suffer. Do you recall that statement?
Yes, I do recall that statement.
And when you asked her about it on the third day of interviewing her, did she recall that statement?
Yes, that statement in Brigham and Women's to the attending psychiatrist was made in the context of her thinking about what happened. Well, let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, she was asked about what the voice had said on that afternoon, and her response was, it had said, "You have to kill yourself so you can kill the kids." It also said, "The kids will suffer without you." And when I asked her about that, whether the voice had said that, she said, no, the voice only said, "This is your last chance. You have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself."
So I'm going to move to strike. That's not responding.
No, overruled. Allah.
So the two differences where at Brigham she's saying the voice said, "You have to kill yourself so you can kill the children," and that the children would suffer without her, versus after that when she says the voice only said, "You have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself." Is the fact that she's giving two different statements significant in your evaluation?
As I talked about in my testimony yesterday, when there is inconsistency, that's something that alerts me to the possibility of inaccuracy. And two statements that are mutually exclusive or inconsistent suggest to me that there is a problem. One of them, at least, is not accurate.
And Doctor, did you find any significance in your evaluation to the fact that she was able to complete a phone call with her husband during this time frame of killing the children and herself?
Yes, that was very unusual in my experience, to have a crucial time interrupted by something like a phone call, because one of the considerations there is that you then not only can document the time that it happened, and that helps be more precise about the time, but you also have whoever is on the other end of the phone. And this was her husband. When he called her at 5:33, she didn't pick up, but she called back immediately at 5:34. And when I talked to him during the collateral interview, one of the things he said is that she sounded, on the short call, distracted. And like she was in the middle of something, but it wasn't anything that struck him as that unusual. He said when she's home with 3 kids, she's always in the middle of something. So that was one of the reasons that it was important. And then another reason, as I mentioned a minute ago, is it helps to establish a time frame. We know when her husband left the house, which was 5:15. We know when he came home, which was around 6 o'clock. And this is not quite in the middle of it, but close to that. And so it was unusual and valuable and important in trying to establish those kinds of things.
And when reviewing the records and talking to the defendant, did you notice any statements or behaviors that seemed to focus in on herself? Such as, for example, being future-oriented.
Well, one of the things I noticed from the records at Brigham and Women's is that several days after she came in, there were comments from staff and in the notes about how she was a little bit more future-oriented and thinking about what it would be like in the future, her life, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the considerations that was in response to kind of thinking about herself and being oriented toward herself.
And is there any significance to that state of mind or those thoughts in your evaluation of her?
Well, I don't think that she was in any way over this or thinking only about herself. It's something that I noticed when I evaluated her in April, is that she is still grieving. She's still in mourning for those kids. And she used language like, "I have lost everything and I don't want to be here." So I would not think of Lindsay Clancy as someone who is really self-centered or oriented only to herself. She is grieving her children.
And you mentioned yesterday the emphasis she had on control of thought and control of her life. How did that come into play in your evaluation in terms of what was done here?
One of the considerations is why she got to the point where she decided to take her own life. And she's an individual who, for most of her life, has been disciplined and liked to control things, liked to work hard, liked to accomplish things. And one of the things that was striking about what happened with her between October and January is that she seemed to be doing her best, talking to the doctors, talking to the therapists, working on trying to get things accomplished in terms of lessening the anxiety and getting the right medications. And it wasn't working, and she couldn't help make it work. She could not control that through hard work and discipline and so on. And that had to be very frustrating, and I think got her to the point where it was very difficult for her to actually think about not being hopeless and going on with her life and so on.
Now, doctor, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty as to whether or not the defendant was suffering from a mental disease or defect at the time she killed her children?
I did, yes.
And what is that opinion?
That opinion is yes, she was. She was experiencing bipolar II disorder, depressive symptoms, and there were other things that were exacerbating that, making it worse. One is the sleep problems and probably the continued adverse reactions to medication and so on. But yes, in my opinion, she did have a mental disease or defect on January 24th.
And doctor, to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty, did you form an opinion as to whether or not the defendant appreciated the criminality or wrongfulness of her conduct when she killed her children?
I did, yes. And I'm at the end of my report, I was very careful about how I phrased this, and so
Sustained. If you could just answer the question regarding your opinion.
So yes, you formed an opinion?
I did, yes.
And what is that opinion?
That opinion is that she retained an awareness of the illegality of killing others, including killing her children. Her moral awareness of the wrongfulness of this killing was influenced by her strong desire to die, and, if she were dead, not to leave her children behind. Some of this perception was realistic. For example, my children will suffer without me because they would have suffered, I think. And some of it was distorted. For example, nobody else can care for my children. But her awareness of the illegality and moral wrongfulness of such killing is best appraised by understanding these acts as a serious suicide attempt combined with altruistic filicide, killing her children out of love, rather than as a response to command hallucinations.
And did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty as to whether Ms. Clancy was able to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law when she killed her children?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
That her capacity to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law is, again, best understood by considering the seriousness of her suicide attempt and her strong desire not to leave her children. She demonstrated such self-control throughout the day on January 24th, and her actions between 5:15 and 6 p.m. that afternoon were influenced by her depression and her hopelessness about her life and the desire to end the pain she had experienced since October. Although this depression and hopelessness influenced her decisions, she retained control over whether, when, and how she carried it out, and the inclusion of her children.
And doctor, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty as to whether or not the defendant was criminally responsible when she killed her children?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion, my clinical opinion, since I'm not the decision maker here, but my clinical opinion is that she was criminally responsible on January 24th.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd move to submit the PowerPoint for identification.
I'm sorry?
I'd move to submit the PowerPoint
For identification. Okay, thank you. That may be done.
CC for ID.